We're grateful for you coming over, and we're very excited by the papers that you've been publishing, which have been showing these connections with enterovirus, which the older researchers, and in particular John Richardson, to whom this conference is dedicated, we dedicate his memory to this conference. So we're very grateful, but we're very excited to hear some of your details. How did you find this enterovirus link?
Well, actually, I have to confess that the first thing I read was the work done by the investigators in Britain, which I will acknowledge tomorrow.
Good.
And without that, I wouldn't even have started on enterovirus research.
Right. And what role do you think antivirus is playing? Do you think it's a trigger, or is it a persistent enteroviral infection, or how is this infection working out into the disease?
Initially, I thought, like everybody else, at least to be conservative, to say that is a trigger. But now we have very clear evidence that the virus actually survives in the body, and the best data came from the stomach.
Yes.
And we were actually able to grow the virus out of the stomach biopsies.
Right.
And this was, we could pass the virus culture from one to another. So we know this is infectious, is transmissible, and is a very slow-growing virus. So it can persist in the cells and not kill the cell themselves. Right. So in this fashion, the virus can actually persist in the body and elicit whatever reaction, inflammatory or others.
Mm. Do you think that the inflammatory response to the virus is very much part of the whole expression of the illness, that we're dealing with an inflammatory disease provoked by the virus?
I believe it is a virus-induced inflammatory response.
Right.
Exactly what that is in terms of cytokines, inflammatory molecules, the pain substance, we don't know that yet. But by treating the patient with antiviral drugs or immunomodulating drugs such as interferon, we can practically take away the symptoms for months to sometimes a couple of years.
So you see a really effective treatment arising out of your work, even with enteroviruses, there's no effective antiviral that I'm aware of for enteroviruses like there is for Epstein-Barr, for the valganciclovir and the acyclovir group of drugs, which seem to be useful against herpes but not against any other virus. But you think interferon, which is one of your cytokines, it could be useful.
I think interferons are useful. The unfortunate thing is that interferons are quite expensive, and to take 2 interferons for a month would cost the U.S. citizen $5,000 a month, and so it's prohibitive. And the insurance companies in our country would not pay for these because the insurance company would consider these treatments experimental or investigational. So the patient oftentimes have to put up, the cost. So drug companies are not interested in this type of studies right now, and I talked to them for actually a number of years now, and it's unfortunate because these treatments are effective, but they're not curative. They are helpful to bring patients up to a much higher level so they can function, so they can have a quality of life, but it's yet not curative.
Do you think there is on the horizon any alternatives which might be cheaper? Is that a long way away?
We think so. We are working on a number of Chinese herbs.
Right.
We hope they are immunomodulating and hopefully to shift the immune system to the Th1 side. Right. We have data from the gene expression studies that patients who are less ill as compared to severely ill patients, they tend to function better they are at the Th1 side. Mm-hmm. So this would be something that we can use in the immediate future. Right. But antiviral drugs like what we use for HIV virus will probably take 7 to 10 more years.
Yes, right. Well, that's very interesting. So there's really real hope in what you're saying for the future, and I think this is what ME patients are looking for: hope and reasons for hope, which are based on good science and not just on wishful thinking.
there's no doubt in my mind this is a treatable disease.
Right.
It may be we may be able to cure it. It's like AIDS.
Yeah.
We were lucky enough to keep the patients alive in the beginning.
Yes.
Now we have 30 drugs for HIV.
Right.
Now people are getting excited about possibly curing the HIV infection by having an integrase inhibitor. So that may be hope in the future. But for this illness, as we see the patient get better with the best therapy we have right now,
Right.
we know this is a treatable disease.
Right. Well, that really is extremely encouraging, and we're very grateful for you coming to speak to us. Do you see any links between this ME and other illnesses which are chronic and difficult to treat, or chronic conditions, not just not illnesses in the conventional sense, but people born with a chronic condition? I'm thinking here of autism, really, which seems to have many links with ME. And do you see that? Is that just wishful thinking on my part, or is there something? Might be something there.
You know, I've been interested in that topic for some time. I suspect there is a link.
Yeah.
I have known a number of women with chronic fatigue syndrome actually have autistic children,
Right.
and it was very difficult for them.
Yeah.
I know there are some data suggest that in the intestines there seems to be inflammatory changes that are consistent with either an inflammatory disease or a virus-induced disease.
Right.
That I think deserve more investigation. We have thought about getting blood samples from patients with autism, but I think these type of studies would not be very fruitful. Knowing this is a chronic disease like ME or chronic fatigue syndrome, the money is in the tissue. If we're going to find virus, it's in the tissue.
Right.
So if we can find it in the gastrointestinal tract, would be a good thing.
Right.
I also believe that a number of medical diseases are related to these viruses. If the viruses are not cytopathic, that they can survive inside of a cell of any organ, then the body reacts to it by an inflammatory response. You create a disease. Depending on the site, you have a different disease. If it's all global, then it's pretty much like what we call chronic fatigue syndrome, ME.
So you would be in agreement with the view of ME as a multi-system, multi-organ illness, not just restricted to the brain or the nervous system or the endocrine system, but capable of influencing all those systems.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah, right, right.